So I'm sitting in front of the Magni M24 gyroplane. In fact, there's 4 of them behind me with different setups, different gear, landing gear, different engine, different prop combinations. And a while ago, I did the review on the M26, which is Magni's tandem enclosed gyroplane. And this is Magni's side-by-side. I promised this a while back, so I'll give it to you today. So the majority of time that I have flying these, I have about 1,000 hours now of flight time in gyroplanes. The majority has been in the M24. So I promise this will be as robust and in-depth as possible in my own personal experience with them. So we're going to cover today a few different things. We're going to cover performance and specs. We'll talk about design features, storage space. We'll go through a full cockpit tour, the ergonomics, the avionics as well. We'll talk about the Xtreme option, which is the backcountry version, which is a really unique offering that Magni has. We'll do an in-flight tour of all 4 of these aircraft. My brother Brian and I will go fly them. We'll compare them, see how they handle their different characteristics with the different engine, prop, and landing gear. And then we'll look at operating costs and finally answer the question, who is this one really for? So if you've watched our other videos, I talk about what's the difference between a gyroplane, a helicopter, and an airplane. Let's talk about airplanes first and compare that to the gyroplane. So an airplane is designed for a lot of different missions. One of them is speed, and they can go really fast. They can get up into the flight levels in 30,000, 35,000 feet for some of the jets. 15, 20,000, they can go 200, 300 knots or faster. They can carry a lot of people. They can carry a lot of luggage and cargo. So they have a lot of different missions that make them a little bit different than other types of aircraft. There are also some that are designed for more off-airport ops. You'll see older aircraft or some of the STOL competition type aircraft with the big tires on them. They're designed for sort of that lower end of the speed spectrum. So you've got a lot of different options with airplanes. But one of the key differences like an airplane and a gyroplane is that every airplane has some speed in which it will stall. They've got wings that are rigidly fixed to their aircraft and to their fuselage, and so as they bank and turn and pitch up or pitch down, there's always a speed for every aircraft at which those wings are going to stall. And if that aircraft stalls, it's actually not a major issue if you're trained for it and you're planning for it and you're in the right flight configuration. But if you get into a dangerous position, let's say you're in a heavy bank and one of your wings is lower and you're not coordinated in your flight, one of those wings could stall sooner than the other and putting you into a spin, either an accelerated spin, a flat spin, or something that would leave you in a fatal situation. So while it's a very manageable situation, it is a risk that airplanes all have that same challenge. Compared to an airplane, a gyroplane cannot stall. It's in auto rotation all the time. The rotor is always spinning. Airflow goes through it, it just constantly spins. So you don't have that risk in a gyroplane. That's a huge safety feature for the gyroplane compared to the airplane. Now again, it's a training issue for airplane pilots. Also, because of that same rigid fixed wing, the airplane handles turbulence completely differently than a gyroplane. When you're out flying, let's say even low to the ground, or if you have a thermal that comes up, that wing and that whole fuselage is gonna rock you all around, and you're just rigidly fixed to that. It's gonna, whatever happens to that wing happens to you. In a gyroplane, what happens is the rotor just spins up a little bit faster, or it decays down a little bit, but not significantly. It just absorbs it. It's a huge benefit. If you especially like to fly low and see things, which the gyroplane is kind of built for, it handles that turbulence really well. The third thing is the visibility. So one of the situations, even though some of these aircraft are designed with amazing visibility really in their own right, they have a wing. Again, it's either below them in a low wing situation or above them in a high wing situation. And one of the risks involved with having that wing there and that lack of visibility is kind of like a big blind spot. So if you think about it, what is the riskiest part? It's usually in the traffic pattern where you're flying around. And if you are a high wing, let's see you're slower in your landing or you're taking off, and you're a low wing, let's say it's above the high wing, that high wing can't look up and see the person above them because there's a wing in the way. And if you're that low wing pilot and you're flying along and you try to look down, you can't necessarily see that pilot in the high wing because you've got that wing beneath you. So situations arise, and it's not uncommon where that low wing descends upon that high wing and neither of them saw each other. And if they weren't making radio communication or didn't have visibility of each other some other way, that's a really dangerous situation. Not true with the gyroplane, right? The gyroplane has amazing visibility both above and below. It can see 270 degrees or more, to your sides and even to the right side if you're on the left side of the pilot. So you've got amazing visibility. So those are some of the key differences. And the last piece that I'll just highlight is that if you have an engine failure, some of them are designed to land pretty short, but they're still going to need usually several hundred feet, often thousands of feet. Maybe less if you're a backcountry or a STOL aircraft where you have the ability to land really short. But most airplanes, 300, 400, 500, 1,000 feet or more to land. So that's why airplanes will tend to fly 3, 5, 10,000 feet in the air or higher, so that they don't have that risk of losing an engine and having to immediately find a place to land. In a gyroplane, you need maybe 50 feet, 100 feet to land. If you're trained up and capable, you can get into a small spot, and you can then therefore fly lower to the ground and still have places to land. So then compared to a helicopter, right? A helicopter can take off and land vertically. This is a huge benefit. It's the main reason you would get a helicopter, is for that capability to hover and take off and land vertically. But because of that, they're highly complex, right? You've got a lot of moving parts. These little pieces have time and life limitations to it, so either a number of years or a number of hours flown, and you've got to replace it. So they're just very expensive. But with that expense, if you can afford it, have yourself a helicopter and go fly places. But however, at the same time, the engine drives the rotor on the helicopter. So in the case of an engine failure, that pilot of that helicopter has a mere number of seconds. Usually they have 1 to 3 seconds in which they can drop the collective. And by dropping the collective, what it does is it changes the pitch angle of the blades. And changing that pitch angle of the blades then allows those blades to go into auto rotation like the gyroplane is already in all the time. That's their response. That's their emergency response to a loss of an engine. In a gyroplane, if you lose the engine, you kind of don't have to panic. You just say, all right, let's find our landing spot. You don't have to change any pitch angles. You can, in fact, vertically descend down if you want to. You go backwards if you need to, so you're always auto-rotating in a gyroplane. Okay, so let's talk about performance and specs. So the max speed is on the M24. I've taken it about 115 miles an hour. The book will publish the numbers just over 100. The minimum speed is about 25 to 30. What I mean by that is your ability to maintain an altitude and fly at 25 to 30 miles an hour. So you can almost hover. If you've got any headwind, you can basically hover. So you're almost like a helicopter. Your typical cruise speed is going to be about 95 miles an hour, although the range is anywhere from about 65 to up to almost 100 miles an hour. And I'll get about a range of about 300 to 325 miles. On that speed, I'll burn between 4.5 to 6.5 gallons per hour, just depending on my setup, what engine I have and what landing gear I have and what kind of drag components I have. Fuel capacity wise, you've got about 21 gallons. Most of that is usable, so you have roughly 3 hours of flight time. And it can burn 91 octane to 100 low lead. So you have a lot of variety of options in terms of what your engine can burn. They're all Rotax engines. So you can have, on the smaller side, you can have a 914 engine, a Rotax 914, which is 115 horsepower. The most common is the Rotax 915, which is 140 horsepower, or the newer version, which is the Rotax 916, and that's 160 horsepower. Main reason you get the bigger engine, the 916 engine, the primary reason is for more takeoff power to get in and out of short grass strips, or you want to climb up over something. It has much more we call takeoff power in that higher RPM band as it's taken off. Landing, roll, and takeoff, we're going to see roughly about 150 feet to 400 feet on your takeoff roll. That's what majority of pilots will see. If you're really good, you can get on that lower end, maybe down to about 100 feet on your takeoff roll. And then your landing roll is going to be anywhere from about 0 if you're good to more like about 100 feet or so if you're a normal pilot. And then your climb rate is going to be about 1,200 to 2,000 feet per minute, give or take, based on the engine and your loading. And speaking of loading, the empty weight is about 700. You have a max weight of about 1,320 for the experimental version, giving you over 600 pounds of useful load. And full fuel payload is going to be right around 500 pounds. Dimension-wise, it's about 9 foot 1 to 2 inches tall. The landing gear, if you've got a little bit bigger Xtreme gear on there, maybe 9 foot 3 inches tall. And then width-wise, it's less than 6 feet, so you can fit it inside a 6-foot trailer if you need to. The fuselage itself is about 15 feet, just under about 14.6. The rotor itself is 28 foot long. So you can actually tuck these inside a lot of different places. If you have a hangar, you want to share that with somebody, you can put this inside another hangar with an airplane in it as well. Okay, so let's talk about some of the design features. This is probably the most critical part of this whole conversation, and I didn't talk about this in my last review, so I want to talk about that a little bit here. So let's first of all talk about what we call the big tail way back. So Magni pioneered this design of this horizontal stabilizer, which is the tail section, and they put it what we call way back, 6-7 feet. The original design didn't really have a tail or a horizontal stabilizer, I'm saying of gyroplanes in general, didn't really have this designed into it. But if you have multiple forces hitting your aircraft, you want another force, in this case the horizontal stabilizer, to counteract, say, the rotor itself. What this has resulted in is what we call dynamic and static pitch stability, or just stability in general. And what that means is if you have something that, let's say, turbulence, or let's say you put the throttle in, or say you pitch down or pull back on the stick, if you do that movement and then you let go, it will naturally want to head back to a centered state. So it's not the oscillations that happen because of these design features are actually muted, and you want that in any aircraft. You want very stable, safe design, so it comes back to normal. In addition to this big tail way back, you've got a high inertia rotor system. What I mean by that is a high mass or a heavier rotor system. And the whole purpose of that is that if you do have a situation where, let's say you have airflow coming through here, but then you pitch down real fast, you cause your gyroplane to pitch forward a little bit, the airflow goes over here, it will start to slow the rotor down, but not as fast if you have a higher inertia rotor. And that lack of decay in the rotor RPM means that it's coned up a little more. So this design is actually really critical to the success of the Magni safety record, which is really high. Okay, so in addition to the high inertia rotor system, you've got in the middle of that the rotor head, which I would say is over-engineered in a good way. So people will often ask, okay, what about these bolts? What happens if one of them breaks? Well, yeah, that'd be a bad day. But that's why they've over-engineered the rotor head and the bolts themselves, so that that's not the weak point at all in this system. So that rotor head, which can also take pre-rotation speeds up to 300, which, to give you an idea, you're going to lift off the ground between 325, 350 or so. That max pre-rotation will then shorten your takeoff roll. So it's a really well-designed rotor head. And then the whole frame, if you think about the design of the entire aircraft or gyroplane, is a 4130 chromoly steel. Chromoly steel is designed to have high fatigue resistance as well as high strength in general. So in a gyroplane, you've got to make sure there are vibrations that happen. It's part of the design of how a rotor works. And you've got different lift components. It's not just like an airplane, which you just have to kind of tune the prop for vibrations. You've got a whole rotor head moving. Same with the helicopter. So you need something that's high strength, but also fatigue resistant. And the airframe is designed from tail all the way to the nose. It's got this really high strength chromoly steel all the way up to the mast and up to the rotor head with this 4130. Now the doors are removable. So you can take one door off, you can take the right side off, the left side off, take both of them off. So on a hot day, you can fly with your doors off and get a lot more airflow in there. And they also have a heat system for cold days. So I'm filming this in the winter. It's Wisconsin. Today it was, I think, a high of like 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty chilly out there. And I remember flying last year, and I'll show it in our video today. I think I was flying at 1 degree Fahrenheit out, and then I looked inside, and with a little bit of sun coming in, it was about 50 degrees Fahrenheit inside. So it was actually, pleasantly warm inside that cockpit. Okay, let's talk about storage space. So this is one of the things when I first got into the gyroplane, I wasn't looking for like a ton of storage. I was looking for something fun and safe, maneuverable, something that I could just go enjoy in terms of aviation. I was really surprised how much storage space there actually is in a M24 gyroplane. And this one, I would say, probably compared to the other models that Magni makes, does have the most storage overall. So in the front of the nose, you can actually put 2 kind of decent sized duffel bags, I'll say something like this, or large backpacks or sleeping bags. They can go right in front of the nose there, and they can be tucked up right in front of the rudder pedals, and there's sufficient space up there that they won't interfere with the movement of those rudder pedals. And then behind your head on both sides, you can fit about a backpack size of storage. Let me show you real quick. So this, you can fit, which actually has pretty good depth to it. If you kind of look at my hand, what is that, 6 or 8 inches there, and it's got to be 18 inches or so there, and maybe 12 inches or so across. You can put a lot of stuff there. That's one on each side of the pilot side and the passenger side as well. And you've got also seat storage underneath the passenger seat, so you can put another kind of medium-sized backpack down below there. You've got about, 6 or 8 inches here that kind of tapers from 4 inches up to maybe 8 or 9 inches. On one side, it's about this wide, and I'll show you that as well. And then you've got also externally accessible storage on both the right side and the left side. Again, about backpack size, and if you want to be thoughtful in how you pack, you can also put various size items in there, where there's some smaller sleeping pads if you're going to go camping, or a small tent, for 2 people or something like that. You could fit their hammocks. We did a trip and we took a bunch of stuff. We could have fit a lot more inside our gyroplane in that last trip we took on. And then there's a glove box as well, right in front of the passenger seat, so you can put daily items in there as well. And one of the things I just love about the design of the Magni M24 is you've got other space all around you. With those doors shut, you can obviously put a lot of stuff just kind of packed around you underneath your legs. So you could probably go for 6 to 7 to 8 days, a week or so, with a couple people if you're thoughtfully packing, and you'd be just fine. So let's jump into the cockpit. Let me show you a little bit about the ergonomics, the avionics, and a little bit about the experience inside here. So the max size guy that I've seen fit into one of these is about 6'7". It all comes down to how your legs and your torso are built. Not everybody who's 6'7" is gonna fit into this, but that's the max I've seen actually comfortably fit with room on top of his head for a headset, and his legs where they weren't like cramped. The smallest person was about 5'1", and they had a couple pillows behind them to help their feet go forward. But the pedals do change, so you can put them in so that they're a little bit closer to you, and there's just a quick change you can put around so they're a little bit further back from you. So about 6 or 8 inches of difference in terms of the pedal length, which is pretty significant for different sized legged people. So one interesting thing about the design of the back seats is that the shoulders don't actually meet up right next to each other. In fact, they're offset a little bit. So if you've got kind of 2 broader shoulder dudes that want to fly together, they're actually offset enough so that you're not rubbing shoulders the whole time. It's pretty interesting, unique design, but it actually helps to keep the narrowness of the fuselage for aerodynamic purposes, but also give you some space for a little bit bigger guys. The pilot sits on the left side. You can fly from the right side. People have ordered it and decided they want to fly from the right side, but the design is the pilot is on the left side, and there's dual controls for both pilot and passenger. So if you want to give someone a flight and let them take controls and play with it, that's totally fine too. Or for flight instruction, it works perfectly. You've got full dual controls on both sides. The avionics are really nice. So you've got Dynon HDX systems, and majority of them. You can go something a little more basic. Gyroplanes don't need a lot, but if you want to have traffic and weather and engine monitoring, you can have it all. It's actually a really nice system. You can control it all from that glass panel, whether it's your transponder, seeing other traffic, your radios, your engine monitoring, your map, and everything is built right into that as well. And coming out soon also is going to be the autopilot version for the M24, but more to come. It's not available just yet. So in the summer, you have cooling vents, 1 on each side. You've got 2 coming up over the top. You've also got some cooling vents on your head. So actually 90, 95, 100 degrees out, even though that's really hot, and when you're taxiing, it's gonna feel warm. When you get going, you've got plenty of airflow. It actually feels pretty good. You've also got a shade over your head, so that actually reduces the amount of direct sun on you, which actually feels really nice. And on the winter, you've got a little heater in there. So as I mentioned earlier, you've got actually pretty good heat in there. So in terms of your landing gear and your tires, let's talk about those options. The M24 comes with a lot of different setups. You can get the standard setup, which is going to have your 406 tire on the mains. And then you have the 606 version, which is going to be for the person who primarily is going to be flying off of a paved runway, but every once in a while wants to go fly into some grass strips. And then you're gonna have the person who wants to go backcountry all the time, which is kind of our bent. And that's gonna be your 856 Aero Classic Tundra tire. And just to look at them side by side, you can see how much difference they are in terms of width, as well as their overall size and height. So one of the cool things about the M24 gyroplane is you can actually interchange these wheels and tires. So if you have one platform, say the M24, and you want to go size it up to a little bit bigger to the country style, or even up to the Xtreme gear, you can do that. Okay, so let's go for a flight. We've got this one here, which is going to be your standard gear setup, the blue M24. That's got the wheel pans, the smaller tires. It's going to be more efficient and a little more economical. You've got your country tire version, which is the orange one here. That's the next step up in tire size. And that's going to be a good blend of your off-airport as well as your runway stuff. And then you've got the red one, which is the Xtreme version with the 915 engine. All these have the 915 engine on them. But that's going to be your Xtreme version with the larger nose fork and the bigger tires. And then what you maybe are not able to see here is we're going to also go up with the M24 Xtreme 916 constant speed prop gyroplane, which is intended to be that backcountry beast. So we'll compare those and we'll go for a flight. And Brian and I will give you our personal thoughts on that. So let's go for a flight. Gonna go for a quick flight today. It's the middle of winter here, so you can see it's kind of cold out. So we'll get some pretty good takeoff and landing and climb performance out of this, and get a sense of what it's like to fly the M24. I'm sitting in what we call the country version right now, and Brian's in the standard wheel configuration. So we're going to compare these two in flight, as well as the Xtreme versions as well.
So we're going to go up, we're going to do a max takeoff here. We're going to pre-rotate to 270, and then we're going to climb out at 62, 63 miles an hour. And then we'll just kind of see what kind of climb rate we get out of that, and how high we are at the end of the runway.
260. Get up to 270. Okay, that's good right there. Release that. Stick back. A little bit forward.
Traffic.
And I get off the ground right there. Pretty good. Now on full power, 55 miles an hour. And let's climb out. Yeah.
60 miles. So we see we're pitched up a little bit. We're really not pitched up that high. Our feet per minute, we're doing about 1,400 feet per minute. And when we get to the end of the runway, we're doing about 1,500 feet.
Okay, so we're going to do a series of tests just to show what the fuel flow and speed is. So we're going to start at 3 gallons an hour here. And we have about half tanks full and one guy each in the gyroplanes. Yeah, I'm probably getting about 55 miles an hour. Okay, how you looking?
I've got 60 miles an hour at 3 gallons an hour.
All right, let's take it up to 4 gallons an hour.
How we doing?
Looks like it's right around high 60s. I'm going to call it 68 to 70 miles an hour. Okay, let's go 5 gallons an hour or 20 liters an hour.
Yeah, I'm getting high 80s, somewhere around 87, 88 indicated, and about 90, 91 ground.
Okay, 6 gallons an hour. It's, yeah, roughly around 90, low 90s. Let's call it 91, 92. Okay, let's go ahead and take it up to 7.
Yeah, 7 gallons an hour, I'm getting somewhere around 98, 99, ground speed of 101 or so. Max speed. And I get about 118.
Let's try to see what we can do from a minimum speed perspective and maintain our altitude.
So I'm holding, easily holding about 30.
All right, so we're gonna go do some off-airport practice to kind of show the comparison between the Xtreme gear and the standard gear and the country tires. So generally speaking, most grass strips that are well maintained, you can take of any gyro, or really almost any aircraft. All right, so we go into here, we're gonna do, this is not a great runway, it's pretty bumpy, so it's a good example of how the Xtreme tire manages this experience. So we're gonna come in and do a low pass, one direction, and we're gonna spin around and come back in the other way. And we're just observing the terrain. It's been a little bit wet out, so we wanna see what the terrain looks like, if it's too soft, too squishy, if you got any places where there's still standing water. So we're gonna do a low pass, probably both directions. And we're gonna keep it nice and light as we come down here. Yeah, that feels really good. So hardly any bouncing. There you go. And that nose gear with the Xtreme shock on there just really helps absorb a lot of the bumps in this terrain. Yeah.
So here's a good example, you know, a little bit of a softer strip, a little wetter. So we're gonna kind of come all the way back. Might as well pre-rotate as high as we can to reduce the amount of downforce that we have. And we'll start nice and easy. Make sure not to bury the nose wheel. Very good. We were flying in up in northern Michigan, and we had two gyros that had the wheel pants on, and we went and we landed on a grass strip there on Beaver Island. When we're landing, the strip itself was nice and smooth, but the grass was kind of that splotchy, patchy mounds of grass. That vibration just comes right through those tires in the aircraft. So you have to really baby that landing to to make it smooth. So all of the M24s are going to have really pretty good maneuverability. So I can come in here and I can do these kind of low level, steep turning. There's a kind of an east-west here, so I'm going to come in here and you know, I've got 360 on the rotor RPM and I'm just pulling right through that, and it's just building up all that extra rotor speed, giving me more energy. And then with the high inertia rotors of the M24, the M16, the M26, they all have that, the M22. This is a Magni thing. They've got high inertia rotors. You can use that extra rotor inertia to carry into your flare. And that'll help slow you down as you set down on the runway. I'm going to kind of follow one of these ditches and kind of show how steep we can turn. Okay, boom. Look at that sharp corner. Okay, we'll do this other one going south here. We'll follow this one here going east. So, ground reference maneuvers, watch out.
Okay, so my plan here is now to go down and do a landing, and I'm going to bring it in typically around 65 miles an hour is my approach speed, except today I'm going to come behind the power curve, which means I'm going to add a little more power. There's less natural lift based on my power setting, so it's going to bring me in slower, but there is a risk that if I were to lose my engine, I don't have enough energy or pitch setting or altitude to be able to recover. So it's more of a calculated move than it is a standard approach. I'll be coming in about 40 miles an hour.
We're going to be coming in slow, a little bit on the backside of the power curve, but we have to mind our height velocity curve. Every rotor wing aircraft has got a height velocity curve. If you are really high, you can go zero airspeed because you can trade the altitude for airspeed in the event of an engine failure. But if I'm really low to the ground and I'm going really slow, I can't get enough forward airspeed to be able to arrest my descent for a flare, and so we have to mind that on our way down here. At any time I have to be able to have an engine failure and make a safe landing. So we're coming in. And Stockbridge traffic, Gyro 4 Alpha Bravo, short final runway 36. There we go, there's our short landing. Stockbridge traffic, Gyro 4 Alpha Bravo is clear of runway 36, Stockbridge.
Okay, hope you really enjoyed that flight. Let's talk about now cost. Now that you're hooked on it, let's talk about what it takes financially to do this. And this is just average numbers, just to give you an idea of it. Nothing is exactly set in stone. Everything's always fluctuating a little bit here and there. But let me give you an idea. So let's start with maintenance and operating costs. So the maintenance and operating costs are actually pretty low. So from an operating perspective, fuel is going to be 6-7 gallons an hour. I kind of budget about $35 per hour for fuel and oil. And then I actually add in about $20 to $25 an hour for what we call reserve. And that's money set aside to overhaul your engine when it's needed, overhaul the rotor head, replace the rotor if needed, and the prop. So on any given hour that you fly, you're probably going to want to budget about $55 to $65 per hour, just operating costs. There's fixed costs as well. So you've got your hangar, you've got your insurance, you've got your annual inspection. Now these aircraft actually can be built as experimental amateur built. If you're the builder, you can actually get your repairman certificate and you don't have to pay the annual condition inspection on the maintenance side if you trust yourself doing that sort of work. But if you don't, it's about $1,500 to $2,000. Typically I budget for an annual condition inspection. Insurance-wise can range, right? So on the lower end, if you're an experienced pilot and you're just going to do liability coverage, it's about $2,500. If you're a very inexperienced pilot and you want to have full hull insurance, or what's known as comprehensive insurance in the industry, you're going to look at more like $6,500 to $7,500 per year. So it's not nothing. It's certainly something that you have to factor in when you're making that decision. The hangar itself is your last piece, and if you own a hangar, if you own a shed or something like that, as I mentioned, they're only 9 feet tall, give or take, 9'1" or 2". You can share a hangar with somebody, but if you budget a couple $100s a month, $2,000 to $3,000 a year, that will give you a good estimate of what it might cost to get a hangar, depending on where you live and what the cost of those are, and that varies widely, of course. And then in terms of a acquisition cost, you can find used M24s in the market that have been around with several hundred hours on them, as low as probably $90,000 to $100,000 in the more minimalist end. Brand new or lightly used ones are going to run upwards of $150,000 or $160,000 for a used model. A brand new machine, you can get something typically, and this is 2025, 2026 numbers, roughly $135,000 to, on the high end, maybe $185,000 to $195,000 brand new with all the options. So that kind of gives you a range. Again, this isn't going to be for everybody. And people team up and they will buy in together. They'll form a little flying club or they'll form a partnership and 3 or 4 people will then split the costs across the board. So that's a very good option as well if you want to consider something like that. And then finally, if you're getting into this for the first time, if you're a brand new pilot, that's awesome. That is so cool. This is a lot of fun to fly. You want to budget, typically $7,000 to $10,000 for training. Again, it's going to vary based on where you go and who you instruct with, your age, your experience, your capabilities. But we see that as kind of an average amount of money that you want to spend. It does require a rating, a sport pilot rating as a minimum. You can fly this as a private or even commercial level as well. And of course, you can flight instruct in them if you'd like as well. So those are some options. Okay, so the question that I get is, who are these really designed for? So A, they're not a helicopter in that they can't take off or land vertically, they can't hover, they can't go 250 knots or even 150 knots, so you're not gonna speed race out to Colorado for the weekend with your 6 buddies and go hit the slopes. But if you're the kind of person who really values safety and maneuverability and visibility and the ability to see really cool things, maybe even go off airport if you get the backcountry or Xtreme versions of this. If you're the kind of person who loves to have the flexibility of something that you can fly at a low operating cost, store in a small little area, since you don't need necessarily a whole hangar. And if you are the kind of person that, when you're flying, you're trying to avoid turbulence. You want to take a passenger up and have them have a great time, especially that side-by-side feel. And then the wind hits or it's a hot summer day, you've got good ventilation in there, and then the turbulence doesn't completely destroy your experience. Like, these are really good machines for that. The gyroplane, the M24, fits that for me because it checks those boxes. So if you're the kind of person that wants that relational experience, you want to sit side by side with somebody, and then in general, if you just want something that a gyroplane can do, this is a really good option for you. So I hope this video helps. Please leave your comments and your feedback below. You guys have been great in terms of giving some thoughts, and we'll do other review videos if we can and other kind of adventure, fun things. If you want to give us some ideas, please put that below and we'll be happy to do that. We'll see you on the next one.